name and which film?
I'm Amanda Knox, or Amanda Renee Knox, and my film was Zasady.
How's it going, guys? I'm Cameron Tyler Carr, and my film was Harlem Fragments.
So I will start off by asking a question I normally ask when I have these Q&As. Can you describe a little bit of the process of how you got this film made? And in particular, I'm always curious about some of the challenges you had to overcome in order to get this made. And in the past, we've had answers to that question that range from COVID restrictions to sudden severe weather that nobody was expecting and things like that to work on your film.
Yeah, thank you for the question. For me, it's an autobiographical story, but also, an Afro-futurist drama sci-fi. So, wanted to really have, vulnerable storytelling, but with intention, and kind of make it so much so, while it's a personal story, an educational PSA for families out there, children out there, parents out there, just folks who are going through turmoil and kind of normalizing processing emotions, and that there can be a light at the end of the tunnel, in the midst of the chaos. In terms of challenges, I really wanted to show a distinct style of Harlem and kind of the Harlem heartbeat and atmosphere, even within one location. Brownstone is such a distinct character, and you can have similar architecture throughout Boston and Massachusetts. So I really wanted to have it be a creature of its own. And so I kept thinking of trying to nail down a location. And I lived very close to where I grew up, in the home that my parents actually lost in their divorce. And so I figured, as I'm looking at all these other locations, let me just knock on that door. And I thought the current owners would slam the door in my face. But I told them my story and kind of my process, and I'm verified as a filmmaker. And this is my kind of big swing as a directorial debut. And they really appreciated my story and the journey that it's been. And so they opened up the doors and said, whatever you need. So we actually shot in the home that my parents lost in divorce. So really crazy. Yeah. Wild medic cathartic ride. And then I'd say, just working with child talent, I think is always a really interesting challenge and puzzle when you're trying to shoot something as ambitious as that. Within 3 days, you don't have 12 hours, you have 5 hours and 7 hours with them. So, they're on a ticking clock with SAG, so you really want to make sure you can kind of, work with them. But yeah. Crazy process. And then my mom is in the film as the grandmother, so a lot of wildness.
We shot the film, so we shot the 16 millimeter because we wanted to shoot something on film, and I shot it in half of a day. And I usually have really big productions with all kinds of things, and I wanted to see if we could just do, I actually secretly just wanted to go off with 3 people and just make a film. So we got some 16 millimeter film, we went into the woods, and we shot with 3 or 4 people. And it rained during the production. That was one of the challenges, because in the middle of our shoot, it was California, it was a drought, and then all of a sudden it rained in the middle, and we had film that a lot of us, I had never worked with film, and the DP had never done it, so we had a loader, and somebody brought a plastic bag so we didn't damage the film. But and then so that sat for a while, and then when the writer's strike happened, I was wanting to do something, still be creative, and the entire city was completely dead. So I got my friends together, and we did put it through post. And so also we had no sound, because it was 16 millimeter and we didn't have sound. I was we're not gonna do that. So every single sound that you hear in the film was done in post. All the Foley, all the breaths, all of it, everything. We had no sound. So that was fun. I mean, it was actually challenging because Ben was, during the strike, he was in London. He is an amazing sound designer. He did Whiplash, and he was in London, so he and I he was taking care of his mother. So he and I would like, he would send me a cut and then I would listen to it at home. And then like, it was weird. I'd never, I usually always go into like a studio or a post house or whatever. And that was also a fun challenge. But yeah, I think that was, I mean, it was fun. We kind of like made it a fun experiment. Like even the colorist and the editor, they all kind of, I gave them choices, and then they just kind of picked what they thought fit, and that's what got put into the film. So like even the poem was picked by the editor, so it was just like, you know.
Anybody
So that's
have
how it
any
came together.
questions, either general or specific to these films? Anyone? Yeah?
On the Harlem, the Fragments of Harlem, what did you choose the animation for the fantasy? What did you choose to do that? And who did it for you? How was that process done?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, and just thank you guys all for coming out. This was a fun, sci-fi block, huh? Yeah, for me, I really, I grew up as an artist, and so I did a lot of drawing, and my fascination came from, my grandfather around, Boston was an antique seller, and so whenever he would come to see me in Harlem, he would bring like a 1960s Black Panther comic. And so it was between that, and so that's how that's why Black Panther is my favorite superheroes, because I was like, 6 reading those comics. So between that and sandwiched between that and my dad, who really loved film, showed me kind of a lot of classics from James Bond, Sean Connery, to the Indiana Jones, and it showed me a lot of those really incredible adventure stories, and I wanted to kind of get into that. But I always wanted to look for, like the black James Bonds, the black Indiana Jones up there. And, similarly in the animation world, right? I was looking for a black Buzz Lightyear. And so I wanted to kind of really dive into that as a vehicle to tell the story. I think the audience all sits with, this space astronaut superhero in his cockpit kind of unraveling these fragments of memories. And so for me, it's a really powerful way of kind of showing this 10-year-old psyche of trying to kind of piece together what happened to his family, but also the way that a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old might process, going through such a hard, traumatic experience. It's kind of trying to find this escapism. But what goes into that process of like him kind of going on this adventure in his fantasy world is the philosophical question of what happens when your reality enters your fantasy world, and to a point where you have to confront it. So I thought it was a really powerful metaphor. I wanted to really have that be the climax of the film. And then my animator, super talented Noah McNeil, he also did the composition score for the film. So super talented cat who I worked with on a previous short, when we needed to fill a piano keyboard artist role the night before, and then he told me eventually after that project that he actually does animation work. So I wanted to give him kind of his first opportunity animating a film and also scoring a film. So, yeah.
So you talked about Indiana Jones and James Bond.
Yeah.
Are there any particular films that influenced you? You have any big film influences from the past that influenced your film?
Not this film, but I'm very influenced by The Hurt Locker. I think there was another question, but I'll just answer this quickly. This was a little film that I made before a bigger film that I made, and that Hurt Locker, the way that it's first person editing, fast pace, boots on the ground, a very visceral experience. That's the kind of filmmaking that I really resonate with, and yeah. But I think.
Was there another question? Yeah.
Yes, I had a question for Mr. Carr. This is such an intensely personal film, particularly it's mind-blowing that you were able to film in the house you grew up in.
Crazy.
So I'm wondering what your family, what your parents and your sister thought about the film, seeing it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I really like, creative nonfiction stories. And as a writer growing up, I really wanted to focus on those things. And for me, this being my directorial debut, I wanted to really be ambitious with, the kind of stories that I focus on, and then also the approach of storytelling that, that family on screen. And so for me, you know, I wanted to, well, it's a very personalized story, you know, about a very specific, you know, kind of family. You know, what's been really cathartic for me is that it's been, you know, it's been able to resonate with, like, you know, people across the country, which has been, for me, so special. And I was in Iowa, and this family came to me just saying how really, you know, connects with them. And so, of course, you know, it's really, like you said, vulnerable to put something like that on screen as a story that is your own becoming. So I really wanted to be intentional about it. And so the two actors who played the parents, you know, Roger Lawrence and Clarissa Tabo, two incredible theater background actors, I had them meet with my family, with my parents, have conversations with them, you know, and kind of get comfortable with each other if we're going to go on this venture and share these stories on screen too. You know, not just family and friends, but also, you know, the rest of the planet. And I wanted to, you know, in this film, you know, the biggest kind of sticking point to me is that just recognizing adults as kind of grown-up children versus, like, you know, a specific category of maturity. And so I wanted them to kind of lean into that experience of kind of this journey of life is really, you know, while you might be a parent, you might not necessarily know what you're doing is the best intention. And so they were able to bounce ideas off of each other and just hear their stories of how they got to be parents. But shining the light in this film, it was important to me to make sure that no one is seen as a villain. You know, no one's in direct blame or at fault. It's kind of just they're trying to communicate to each other, but not necessarily listening to each other and hearing each other. You know, they're kind of dueling in front of their kids, but they still can't find the ability to compute compatibility in that sense. But yeah, they have found that this story is because, again, they have been through it and experienced kind of the journey. It's been like 15 years of kind of, you know, where we are now versus where we were in the midst of it all happening. And so they're very appreciative that it's, again, used in a way that is now, you know, positive, in a way that could be kind of, you know, searching for growth. And it's been special, just to close to your question, you know, it's been able to reach classrooms and, like, have an educational benefit. You know, it's been at educational summits, and, you know, teachers are like, this is exactly what I need to connect to these students, so I know something's going on at home, but they can't, you know, find the comfortability to describe it. So it's really special in that way. But yeah, thank you for the question.
Anyone else? Yes?
They were both wonderful films, and they relied very successfully on incredibly compelling central protagonists. And I'm wondering, when you're building your film, if you make story structure based on the core of that central protagonist, or do you build the character of that protagonist around what you've already decided is going to be the story structure, or neither?
Yeah. I'll go quick since I got this, but yeah, for me, for this story specifically, you know, I knew that I wanted to have it from the lens of a child, you know, kind of witnessing and absorbing, but also in a way that can be relatable to other folks. But very much specifically for this story in particular, I wanted to have a black boy protagonist. And this actor, you know, he's never gotten an opportunity to be a lead, right? He's always kind of like a token black kid in a commercial. And so that's very much an experience for him to now have this as his, you know, staple, and he can approach the industry in that sense. He's never been seen on screen. I've never saw myself on screen in that way. And so I wanted to create that environment for him, is the way that I approached this one.
For this film, it wasn't very, for most narrative films, like we usually, at least in my films, we take, you know, it's a very classic sort of way. You have a story and then you make a film. But for this film, I had written a story, sort of an outline of a story, because I knew it was going to be a voiceover. And then what happened in post was the images sort of started to tell a different story. And then when the editor picked the poem that was narrated, that narrated the film, I ended up taking the voiceover and weaving that kind of with the poem. So I guess it kind of happened the opposite way for this one. Yeah, which was really fun. I was like, I don't know, we're just gonna make a film and we'll see how it goes. Which is really freeing for me as like a writer director, and also the rest of the crew too. I mean, I think like some of the people work on things that are, you know, big projects, and they were like, this was so much fun to just kind of like not like care, but not really care, and that we were able to play a little bit. So yeah, it was a trip because I was like, is this gonna work? Like, am I gonna get in trouble? So no, because I come to festivals like this, and then where everybody's just a little, you know, like so it's fun.
Anyone else? If not, then I will just wrap up with the final question of what's next? Anything in the pipeline coming down the road?
I have another short that I shot in November before the fires, about the fires, which is weird, but that's in post right now. I just have to finish it, and then I have a feature that I'm hopeful to shoot. I don't know, this year maybe, when we find the money. So that's next. Yeah, I'm excited though. It should be fun.
Right on.
It's about two people who get trapped on a trail in a heat wave in the 80s with no water.
Yeah. For me, you know, Harlem Fragments is meant to be a proof of concept for, you know, a feature adaptation. I've been fortunate enough to, you know, have a feature script already built out and developed, and you know, we were lucky enough to go to Sundance Feature Labs round 2 and kind of get it shaped even more so there. So now just really trying to get it into development. What's fun about it is that, you know, every character becomes kind of a main character, primary. So you get to kind of get in everybody else's psyche in addition to just, you know, Kyle, TJ's. And yeah, you get more time in space, which is always nice for sci-fi stuff. But you know, if you think, you know, everything everywhere all at once, and kind of that kind of you know, surround sound, full euphoric kind of experience is kind of what we're going for. So really excited to get that in development once we you know, secure the funds. So.
Well, thank you both for coming.
Yes,